How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be talking about carbohydrates, which is our second macronutrient. So last week we talked about protein, and this time we're going to be talking about our energy source, or our fuel for our muscles and overall everyday life. So taking it from the top, guys, you need carbs no matter what. Whether you're an active person or inactive, you need them to function and to just have your body running at its best. So that being said, when it comes to performance, which is the area that I train in, especially when it comes to anything functional fitness, you'll come to realize that anytime you don't have carbs, your workouts are going to start eating you alive. Strength doesn't come as easy. The weight that you would any day be able to pick up sometimes might feel heavy if you're low on carbs. You won't have a real battery when it comes to your workouts and being able to push through a workout. Instead, you'll more so find yourself surviving it. And then for my bodybuilders, anybody out there who's not doing functional fitness, you'll also find that your energy is just overall really low. And while you might be able to push through on more movements where you're isolating, you're going to find that that intensity is just not there. So carbohydrates are really good fuel for the muscles, and that's one of the things that I'm going to want to keep coming back to in today's video. So the way it works is if you're properly fueled up, your body's going to be going through 3 different energy sources, and without getting too sciencey on you, those energy sources are going to allow you to burst like you would in a sprint. They're going to allow you to carry through with moderate intensity, and eventually everybody kind of fades out, and you're going to be able to just really maintain a low intensity all the way through the rest of your workout, however long or short. So transitioning right into things to look out for when it comes to carbohydrates. If you're going through your regular day and you're starting to notice that you have really low energy, chances are you're really low on carbs. For me, this is something that I found to be true, especially on my rest day. I would usually taper down my carbs on my rest day just to make sure that I stayed pretty lean overall. But at first, when I started tracking my macros, and this is something I want to warn you guys about, you should stay away from dropping down too low, because you're going to start to find that you're just not, 1, recovering as well as you could be, and then 2, just feeling like you're kind of draggy all day and you just don't have a lot of energy to do the regular things that you do, like focused work on the computer, so on and so forth. So now that we know we need carbs, what should we look for when we're going grocery shopping? So I like to always look at nutrition labels, especially when I'm looking at something at, like, let's say Trader Joe's that I'm not used to getting. Maybe it's a new product and it looks interesting to me. A couple things to look out for are your proteins, your carbs, and your fat. But mainly, the first thing my eyes always gravitate towards is sugars. Because sugars are a form of carbs, and my general rule of thumb is I like to stay in the single digits. So what I mean by that is anything past 9 grams of sugar usually starts to raise an eyebrow, and depending on what the product is, I might just set it back and not even bother with it. Now, you can get away with certain sugars at certain times of day. So for instance, if I was to do a morning workout at 10 a.m. and I'm going to have a breakfast with some carbs to kind of fuel my workout, and then have some strawberries or blueberries, any kind of natural sugar. Those natural sugars are going to be used in my workout to actually help me in performance, and they're not going to count towards body fat. So that's where I would make an exception for sugar, but I would stay away from it if I'm not really working out that day, or if it's late at night. That's usually something I want to stay away from, because carbs are, again, your energy source, and chances are I don't need that energy 10 p.m. or midnight if I'm laid out at night. So now that we've talked about what to look out for as far as sugars go, overall, you can have a decent amount of carbs throughout your day, but you really want to have most of your carbs, most of the dense carbs, so things like white rice, maybe even breads, pasta, around your workout, either before or after. And I want to lean towards after, just to avoid feeling like you're being too full going into a workout, because I'm sure we've all been there, and that's something that I want to urge you to avoid. So while on that note, it's important to mention that sugars do count as carbs. And as I mentioned in my very first video on nutrition, I never want to guide anyone towards excluding certain things from their diet. I know I have a sweet tooth, so I like to indulge here and there, but I make sure to count those sugars in towards my overall carb count. And if I were to indulge on something like, let's say, a piece of See's candy, so a little piece of chocolate, I know that that comes with a little bit of fat, so that would be something that I have away from my workout, so that it's not weighing me down, or maybe even after isn't so bad, as long as it's just a small piece. something to keep in mind there. But we do want to make sure that we're counting our sugars towards our overall carbs, and doing so is going to prevent us from going over, which will allow us to kind of eat towards supporting body fat rather than eating for performance or eating to maintain lean body mass or whatever your goals may be. So moving on, guys, if you were to transition and focus more on complex carbohydrates, so you can think of that as whole foods, white rice, pasta, I know I mentioned those two before, breads, sweet potatoes, even red potatoes, things like that are not only going to give you good healthy carbs, they're going to increase satiety. And so for those that don't know, satiety is your ability to feel full longer. If I were to compare, like let's say 2 pieces of that See's candy I mentioned earlier to half of a sweet potato, they might end up being the same amount of carbs because those sugars or those candies are packed with a lot of sugar, which will spike those carb intake or that carb intake. And if I were to have that sweet potato instead, I know that that's good, reliable energy. And if we were to compare the two equal carbs, one of them is going to make me not only feel full longer, it's going to help me just fuel my body throughout the day, and it's also going to come with some really important vitamins and minerals that I would not get from the chocolate. So something you want to just kind of think about overall as you're approaching your carb intake with your macros is, I want to be able to enjoy this, but let's do it in moderation, and let's make sure that we're not leaning towards the candy, so that way we're getting other vitamins and minerals that are just going to help our body function best and make us feel better overall, especially when it comes into our workouts. So moving forward, again, don't eliminate, moderate the types of foods that are junk foods or the foods that we lean towards when, either they're a comfort food or, it's time to splurge or on vacation, that kind of thing. It's something that I never want to advise you to steer away from, but just keep in mind to be mindful when you do indulge so that you can satisfy that craving and still be working towards your goals. That being said, guys, last point I want to make on the things to look out for. So if you're managing your carbs overall, you can really play with your performance. So you're going to be able to make strength gains. You're going to be able to have great energy throughout the day if you're working out or not. And the best part about that is you're not going to eat to support body fat if your goal is to maintain some lean mass. So you'll be able to hit those goals and still indulge time to time, and also learn how to really gravitate towards the carbs that are better for you and learn about which ones function best with your overall goals. So that transitions us right into my next point here that I'm going to dive in on. So fueling your lifestyle. When it comes to different types of carbs, I know I touched up on a few, so going back over them, we have breads, we have pastas, different types of potatoes, rice, white or brown. I want to talk about just a few things and how I would structure my day based on when my workout is, what my workout was, and how much fuel I need based on that. So I want to talk about one of my favorite carbs, white rice. So white rice is great because it's packed with a lot of carbs, and you won't really be getting a whole lot of protein from it. You won't be getting any fat, I believe, from white rice as well. So it's a perfect food to have when you need a lot of energy. So if I were to do a workout in the middle of the day, what I would do is I would load up on a little bit of white rice maybe 2 or 3 hours before, and keep my protein source lean so that all that food can go through my body quick. I won't be weighed down before my workout, and by the time my warm-up's done, I'm fired up and I'm ready to go. Brown rice is something that I'd lean towards on either a rest day or a few hours away from my workout. So assuming I've done my workout, I've had my post-workout meal, then I'll have some brown rice with the meal post the post-workout meal. Reason for that is because it's a little higher in fiber, and white rice goes through your system really quick. Brown rice is something that will go through your system fairly quick, but because of that high fiber content, it's going to take a little longer to digest. So really important thing about carbs is, in addition to it being a fuel source, it also helps replenish that fuel source post-workout. And when you're done with your workout, you want that ASAP. So leaning towards something like brown rice might not be the worst thing, but it's not also the best thing for you. So same thing goes with sweet potatoes as well, another great carb source. So that would be something I'd compare to brown rice. A little bit more fibrous and something that's going to be great overall for sustained energy, but something I might think about having away from my workout just so that it doesn't weigh me down and that I can get my muscles fueled up and ready to go for tomorrow's workout. And then on that note, comparing something to white rice, I would do like plain pasta or even red potatoes. That's going to be something that's going to provide that immediate energy as well. So those are just some few things you want to take into consideration. in addition to looking at the overall carb source, look at the amount of fiber that it has too, and be able to structure your day's meals around your workout based on how much fiber it has, how many carbs are in whatever fuel source you decide to go with, is going to allow you to not only feel good during your workouts, but to be able to make sure you're getting the most out of your recovery and that you're not being weighed down in the process. All right, so I'm going to transition right into my next point here. So which carb sources are best for you? And that really just depends on the person. It depends on your ancestry. There's a whole the plethora of different factors really, but a lot of it comes from experience. For me, I know I function really well on white rice. Brown rice I can do really well as well. Things like beans are really good for me too, but I have to have them in moderation because I start to personally feel pretty bloated. So a lot of it's trial and error, and your body is really good about kind of letting you know how it feels, what works best, trying out different types of foods before or after your workout, and then just kind of listening to seeing how recovered you are the next day, how good your sleep was that night. Did you feel like you had, a lot of gas, or your stomach was really uncomfortable and you were tossing and turning? That's an indicator that you might have had maybe a carb source that didn't quite agree with, your GI tract or just your biological background. So in addition to overall experience, you can look into a website called 23andMe. And what that does for a small fee is it gives you an idea of what your ancestry is like, and looking back that far is going to give you an idea of how your ancestors ate, what kind of carb sources they gravitated towards. So if you're coming from an Asian ethnic background, then chances are your ancestors ate a lot of white rice, and that white rice is going to be a lot better for you and function best with your system than, let's say, beans would. So that's just an example, and it helps to know that information for those of you that really want to be dialed in, although I don't recommend going that far for general public. It's just good to know without having to experiment right off the bat. So I know I touched up on carbs and how they flow into your workouts. So again, general rule of thumb is to make sure that you don't have the higher fiber carbs around your workout. You want to actually have things that are going to go through your system a lot faster, like white rice and pastas, that kind of thing. So last note on fueling your lifestyle: if you're able to take all of this into consideration and just be patient with yourself, because it's going to take a while to just implement. Mind you, I'm a little more than 10 years into my fitness journey and I'm still learning a lot. So a lot of experimentation, a lot of really being patient with yourself is going to allow you to build muscle, to have a lot of energy throughout the day and in your workouts, and also keep that lean mass that the majority of us are going for. So be patient and just kind of ride the wave, listen to your body, and I'm sure the results are going to pay off. Last but not least, I want to talk about carbs and recovery. So having most of the carbs around your workout is not only going to make sure that you're fueled up, it's going to, again, make sure that your recovery is as good as it can be, which is going to play right into tomorrow's workout. And make sure that that day before rest day, whether it's 2 or 3 days out from where you started in the week, isn't one that you're just trying to survive and get to that rest day too. It's one that you can feel you're working through with moderate intensity, and that you really earn that rest day. Instead of just surviving the workout, you're pushing through it a little bit more. So again, doing so is not only going to make sure that your performance is good, it's going to keep your body fat low and ensure that the next day is good for performance. And one of the things I want to touch up on as far as carbs on a rest day goes, your body again will kind of tell you what it needs. And if your muscles are really aching, and let's say you're managing your macros really well, you're really watching your carb intake, but you're feeling like your body's a little thrashed, that'd be an indicator to keep your carbs at that same level as you would on a day where you're working out. And in doing so is going to allow you to get a little bit more energy in your muscles and allow you to recover and feel better going into that day following that rest day. So when should we have these carbs after our workout? So we all know that protein's important, and a lot of people bring protein shakes to the gym in their gym bag so they can have it right after the workout. And although protein's good for recovery, it's a little bit more important to actually fuel your muscles and get that fuel back in right away. So we've all heard about the anabolic window, and while there's some truth to it, really what you want to lean towards as far as the macronutrient right after a workout is actually carbs. Protein's important too, but carbs are a little bit more important for recovery and energy, which you all need for your workout no matter the type. So it's really important that you get a decent amount of carbs in. So I'd say if you're tracking anywhere between 40 to 50 grams of carbs 2 to 3 hours after your workout. really important that you get it in that window, because your body is in a state of starvation and it's going to be pretty much a sponge. It's going to be able to absorb all those nutrients as fast as possible to ensure that the recovery happens right away and that you're in a good spot for tomorrow's workout, no matter what it is. Last but not least, guys, so it's important to be fueled out throughout the week when it comes to your training, because if you're properly fueled, your workouts are going to feel good, and you're going to find yourself in a state of always pushing rather than surviving. And if you're recovering well because of your proper carb intake, it's going to allow you to get more workouts in throughout the year, which is going to equal more gains. So that just about sums it up for carbohydrates. I hope this information has been really informative to you. As always, guys, if you liked what you saw, please like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions on anything that I might have touched up on, or anything that didn't come up and you might need a little bit of clarification on. As always, guys, I appreciate you watching. I'll see you on the next video.